almost bubbling. And they would take off the trough, all the bad stuff. And they would do it again and again and again. And David says, continue to do that until you can see your face in the clear, molten metal reflection. And that's what I'd like to challenge you to do with these steps, is not just once, but to go back through them and say, you know what, God, I want to be pure before you. I want to be clean. And yeah, I got some, it's like taking a bath, I guess. You know, you get the really first stuff off really good, you know, from out working in the yard or something like that. But then you got to start digging underneath the fingernails, the part that really does, it's not really noticeable. But you get outside, you get all the dirt, the big stuff off, and then you start looking at the smaller areas, and you have to start doing some real work. And that's what I'm going to pray, that you will find God working a deeper work in you than just being satisfied to have just the superficial stuff. But to have a closer walk with God, meaning to get rid of all of it, not being satisfied. Don't forget the pain that you went through. Just allow yourself to come cluttered up again and have to go through that process again. Be willing to say, you know what? I don't want to slide back in my old habits. I don't want to find myself doing the same old things. You know, and I guess that's one of the things that I like about 12-step programs for the most part, is that they have meetings that people go to. When they start feeling like they're going a little crazy, when they get back into the old habits of the old mindset, that they find themselves saying, you know what, if I don't want to find myself abusing drugs or alcohol or whatever it was, if I don't want to find myself falling back into those old traits, I've got to find myself getting back and being sane again and doing the right things. And that's why it's good to say, you know what, I want to go through these steps again. I want God, as I flip through my notes from over these weeks, where you can go back and you can see them all on YouTube. You can go back through them and say, you know what, God, what would you have me to kind of recap in my life today? Where am I at personally right now with you? Show me something that I need to be working on today. Don't be satisfied to say, you know what, I've come this far and I don't have to work anymore. Because your life with Christ is never over. It's constantly breathing. It's constantly going forward. If it's not, it's dying and it's already gone. Take a look at over 1 Peter chapter 3. You know, I don't want to go through another set of step 4. Those of you that remember step 4, that's going through all of your character defects. I don't want another trip around that trip. I don't have to do that again. So I'm very careful to make sure that I am not getting myself back into trouble with holding grudges and being upset with people and being angry at myself. And I don't want to be doing those character things again. I found that was really painful enough the first time. It's like being a kid and going up when I was a child. The stove that we had in our kitchen had a griddle on it. I don't know how many of you all had those. You know, it was an old stove, kind of set in, and had a griddle and had burners on here. And my mom would cook pancakes on that griddle. Well, one day I had no clue that that griddle was hot. You know how many times it took me to learn that lesson? Once. That's how step 4 was for me. It was that painful that I don't want to go through that process again. Step 8, going back and making amends. I'm trying not to do anything along the way that I need to go back for and go back around and apologize for later. Trying to keep that stuff out of my life, simply because I don't want to have to be doing that. I want to be experiencing all of the good things that come, having found out that, you know what, I can live free from all that control. I don't have to be in charge. I don't have to be in charge. And I'll tell you, it was rough this week because there were some things going on in my business that Mark and I were trying to kind of do some things, and I got really kind of concerned about it. And God said, you know what? You just do your job, and I will do mine. And I decided that it wasn't on me, or it wasn't on my ability. And the last 2 days, and I told Mark asked me, I worked on a particular project that I thought would bring in a huge wave of money. Anybody ever done that and have banked a lot on one project? I mean, you're banking on it, working. And it failed miserably. I mean, I have only had a few days in my whole 15 years career that were worse than on Tuesday. Truthfully. And that's when I reassessed myself on Tuesday night when I got into my hotel, in that really bad hotel, top it all off. Have had a really bad day at work, and then they put you in the crappiest, excuse the term, world's worst hotel in the whole wide world. And you go, how did I find myself here? How did this come about? And having to retake a look at everything that you've done today and realize, you know what? You are not in charge. And come back and say, you know what? I am definitely not in charge, and I am definitely going to stay with the inspiration that only God's Spirit can provide. And the very next day, with a third the crowd, made huge dollars on an old piece. It was the first one that I did back years ago. And I had to ask God, well, why did that work? He said, because I gave that to you. He said, you tried this one, but I gave the other one to you. Oh, why do we have to learn at such an expense? And then on Thursday, the same thing. I said, well, you know what? I'm going to give this whirl again. I'm going to roll this out there one more time. I rolled the old one back out that has been my standard. And you know what? God constantly amazes me that, you know what? It's never going to be your 2 feet that you're standing on. It's going to be on the fact that you're standing within my hand. And I put you in the place where you're supposed to be. And you rest on me, and I'll do everything else. So I did. 1 Peter chapter 3. See, it's never about you. A lot of times, Ken, we think it's all us. You know, you can get so good at what you do that you think it's actually you. I got news for you. It's never you. It was never you to begin with. Here in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. But it says, in your hearts revere Christ as Lord. Put him always at the top. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. How come you do so well? It is not me. It is Jesus Christ. It is him. Do this with gentleness and respect. Always remind yourself and remind other people, you know what? It's not because I'm good, because I am not good except through him. Never. You know, I know a lot of people that, you know, and it's not that they don't need to be revered for what they've gone through and what they've done. But you know what? You can never think too highly of yourself. You just can't. You can't think that, you know what, I am due this, because we really aren't. I've got to remember the fact that for all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. None of us are any good. Outside of him, we're not. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have experienced a miracle this week? How many of you experienced a miracle this week? Okay. The rest of you have, you just don't know it. Your mind doesn't know it. And I'm going to tell you, you need to wake it up. Because every one of us experience miracles every single day that we're not aware of. You know, I know a lot of people say, well, I went and tried to get a new job and I couldn't get a new job and I just get stuck in this one. You know what? I have seen this week and talked with people who got a new job, left a secure place, got a new job, got there just in time for a layoff. Now they're without one. They had a good one. And I saw people who were crying because they didn't have jobs. And suddenly I think, you know what? God really protected us if we just listened. Oh, I really wanted to date that person. I just wanted to marry them. They were, good. And if you had, you would have found out later that they were psycho. God spared you. God. Well, I wanted a new place. And I prayed and I just made it happen. Just to get there to find out that you got laid off and now you got a house payment that's so big you can't handle it. See, sometimes we push the hand of God and we don't realize that God is really working on our behalf all the time. And we don't see it. And we want to know why it didn't work out. Well, that's because God was saving you from yourself. You wanted to be in charge, and sometimes He's going to let you, and you wish He hadn't. Look over at Romans 13. You see, I think sometimes we just operate kind of on autopilot, and we just kind of float through the world, not recognizing the fact on the right and on the left hand, God has been doing miracles the whole time, and we were never even aware. Not even aware. Here in Romans 13, verse 11. The day is near, and do this, understanding the present time. The hour has already come for you to wake up from your slumber, because our salvation is nearer than it was when we first believed. You know what? When you got born again, you thought that the whole thing was over. You didn't have to work any harder. You didn't have to do anything. You know what? It's time to wake up, folks. It's time now to share what God's done for you. That's what step 12 is all about. It's time for you to begin to let the cat out of the bag. You know what? That I'm not worried about all of my character defects, because with God's help, I got rid of them. I don't have to worry about unforgiveness anymore, because God reminded me. I allowed the Holy Spirit to remind me of all the people that I had ought against, and I got a chance to go back and talk to some of them. And some of you got some surprises, didn't you, when you prayed that prayer? People came out of your woodwork, out of your past. Isn't that right? She sent me a cute little text. She said, you know, I hadn't seen this person in years. Step 8 came out, and there they showed up just like that. I got to make amends on that day. You know what? I just believe that God's going to do that for more of you. I'm waiting for the day that I'm out shopping and I'm going to run into my ex-wife. I'll run into her shopping, because that's what she does best. But I'll run into her, and I'm gonna say, you know what? Mark asked me last night. He said, well, how much did you come out of 26 years of marriage? How much did you really come out of? Well, I came out with 2 sticks of furniture that are still in our living room, because I still love those chairs. And that was it. And about $5,000 after 26 years of marriage, having made lots of money. And I'm going to tell her, I'm sorry that I have held it against you all this time. That we didn't come out better. And then I'm going to tell her, and the reason why I held it against you was because I should have been a better overseer. I shouldn't have held her responsible for stuff that I willingly walked away from. And instead of getting involved in, let her do it. But I held it against her because she didn't do a good job. It's me walking away from mine. Ephesians 5, 1 and 2.